to fly. Let's do this.
Diving into Blue Beetle, this was a movie that kind of took me by surprise. I gotta be honest with you, I did not know it was coming out, and when it came out, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go check that out, see if it's any good. It's one of those movies that sometimes I would gloss over. There's been a lot of superhero movies in the last probably 3 to 4 years that I've just glossed over. Endgame was like the end of the superhero game for me, but I know that this is something that I'm committed to, so I figured, you know what, I'll check out Blue Beetle, see if it's any good, and I was pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of things I liked about it, and I always like to start with story because a script is the foundation of any good movie. If the script stinks, it doesn't matter how nice it looks, it's still going to be trash. So let's talk a little bit about the story. Now, this is an above average story in some respects, and let me talk about that. The biggest theme that came through in this film that I was impressed with, and that was a huge welcome change to kind of last 2 to 3 years movies that have been coming out, is the family aspect. I really loved how they drove home the Reyes family, right? So this is a Mexican family, and they make a ton of jokes about that, and most of them land, and they're actually pretty well delivered by all of the actors and actresses that play this Reyes family. I think that was one of the most endearing and fun parts, and when they're playing the family and when they're all together, it actually worked the majority of the time, which is hard to do when you got 5-6 people kind of all vying for screen time, and you put it together really well. That's pretty impressive. So I was hooked on the family, okay? The character I'm not that familiar with. A lot of people are not. It's more obscure in the DCU. However, I feel like bringing it to the big screen was a bit of a risk, and hopefully it pays off for them because it was a really endearing story. I really did like the family elements. And as a superhero, he's kind of likable. He's definitely an underdog, right? He's kind of like a Peter Parker. He's the first Reyes to ever go through college and get a degree, and they're all excited, but outside of college, their whole life is falling apart. So he comes back to a world that's really broken in half, and he's like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? So he ends up working low-level jobs, just trying to support his family, so on and so forth. So it's kind of this underdog story. He stumbles upon, I would say the lead actress or the love interest, Bruna Marquezine. Hopefully I'm saying that somewhat right. I think she did a pretty great job in this film. Actually, I enjoyed almost everything that she did. But the story really centers around this family aspect. So for that, I have to give it an extra point. And I would say this is definitely an above average story based upon the crafting of the family. So I think they did a really good job with that. As far as the characters are concerned, the lead actor, Zolo, a lot of people know him from Cobra Kai. He's been in a very likable show for a long time. So he's kind of one of the backbones, and I think that's a really good thing. I think people are going to connect with him here. It makes sense that he got cast as this part. Not only that, but there was a couple members of his family that really did a great job, and kind of the backbone of the family was Damien Alcazar. He played the father figure. He did a great job. Every time I saw him on screen, I'm like, you know what? They have a father in here that is respected, that is loved, and he's the backbone of this family. I'm all in anytime they do something like that. And they did it pretty well here. A little bit of camp, a little bit of corn, but overall it was pretty darn good. The standout of the family for me was George Lopez. He comes in with a hilarious performance. I genuinely laughed out loud like 6 or 7 times watching him just having fun. You know, when an actor has fun on screen, especially one that's experienced like this, who's been a comedian, who's got a lot of laughs, he just understands comedic timing, and he knows how to pull gold out of any script and even do better than probably the writer was thinking, right? So I think George Lopez was a standout in this. And then the other standout as far as playing their character really well was Susan Sarandon, as if she doesn't always crush it. However, she plays the bad guy in this film. She plays the evil aunt who kind of gets power hungry and all this stuff and ends up causing a lot of problems. She has to be stopped. Susan Sarandon has very Hillary Clinton vibes in it. Very creepy, very nice. So I think she did a good job. You really don't want to like her, right? Like you look at her and you're like, this person's giving me the creeps. And the way she talks to people and the way she manipulates people, ooh, it was nasty. Which is good. That's what you want in a film like this. So, I will say that they cast this pretty well. Everybody played their part. There was a couple lines that missed. A couple lines that were said pretty stiff. But overall, the acting was pretty good across the board. Where did this movie fall apart? Well, truth be told, there was a couple parts of the film that drug a little bit for me, and I was kind of finding myself like leaning back in my seat, waiting for it to be over. And I would say the thing that they drug out probably 3 or 4 minutes longer than it needed to, which in screen time is a very long time. If you're doing a scene that's 3 or 4 minutes too long, you got to really ask yourself what ended up happening here. Were they filling time? Was it on the cutting room floor? Was it a directorial thing? And like, who made that decision? And it's when he turned into the Beetle. I feel like they took the lazy way out on how to describe his powers, how to describe what he could do when he's in this suit. And I feel like that scene drug on very, very long. Like, he's flying around the city, the suit is doing this status check, and it's showing him all the pieces of it, and it just kept going and going, and it felt like forever to me. Maybe it wasn't that long, but the way they did it, I was like, dude, when is this going to be over? Like, there's other ways to show me that you have powers that you need to discover. Like, I feel like the original Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, they did a good job, right? Like, he's discovering these things accidentally, and they just happening to him. And, you know, he gets punched at and he ducks and he's like, oh, snap, I saw that coming. So I feel like they could have done this a little bit better. It felt clunky. It took forever. And it was kind of annoying. So that was one thing that kind of made the movie fall apart for me. Another thing was the action scenes had potential to be good. However, the way that they filmed it was very close and claustrophobic. You're so close to the character. He was doing like 1080 spin hook kicks and whacking somebody in the face, and whoever the stunt actor was for it, you know, Anis Chirfa, Danny Graham, so one of these guys that can do all these acrobatics, whoever was doing it was amazing, and the camera was so close that you couldn't actually see it happening. So I like when you back up on the action a little bit, give it a little Jackie Chan vibes where you can actually see him doing these cool stunts. I feel like that would have paid a little bit more homage to these stunt actors who are incredible, doing really great fight scenes. So those were just 2 minor complaints. Overall, the movie was pretty solid. The family aspect was really solid. The community aspect, coming together, doing this thing together, I loved it. They had me on that. And honestly, the comedy really hit here. I would say 80 to 90% of the comedy hit. The only thing that didn't hit was like kind of that childish, campy comedy. I didn't really enjoy that because, you know, I'm in my 30s. I don't laugh at fart jokes, right? Other than that, everything really hit. And I think they did a great job. Some standout acting as far as like the comedic acting, and then Susan Sarandon with that creepy vibe was just really good, and I loved to hate her on screen. So that was really job well done. I think overall this movie, remember, and 5 is average for me, okay, so a lot of movies fall in that category. I would say this movie is an average movie. Does it break the rules on superhero films and revolutionize them? No, definitely not. However, it was solid, it was enjoyable, I laughed a lot. If you want a nice summer comedy at the end of the summer, this is the one I think to go see. If you want to bring your family, definitely check it out. It's good for younger audiences because there's really nothing bad in there that they can't see. So I would bring my children to see this. So normally I'd say this is about a 6 out of 10, but I would say the family aspect for me brings it up to one that I would go to theaters with my children to go see. So I'm going to get a 7.1 for the family aspect. So that's a review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.